People with excessive emotions know this feeling all too well. Every now and then they just can't help but want to offer some emotional value to others. To put it simply, it's like wanting to give every girl in this world a home. However, just as I was about to confess to my online chat partner in person, I unexpectedly saw a barrage of bullet comments appearing out of nowhere. One comment said, "Male supporting character, don't waste your time. The female lead is avoiding you." Now she realized she was chatting with the wrong person, and now she almost regrets it to death. The male supporting character causes a lot of harm, all because he used an avatar very similar to the male leads. Otherwise, Willow wouldn't have gotten confused. Another comment popped up. The female lead is also disgusted by him and our male lead. He just became friends with the female lead yesterday. How unfortunate. As I was frozen in shock, I ran into Willow. When she saw me, her gaze immediately flicked away and she avoided me completely. So the next second I walked past her and directly handed my love letter to her roommate, online chat partner. I don't just have one. The flirty voice messages at night, I send them to multiple people at once. Chapter 1. When I saw those bullet comments, I was a little stunned holding flowers outside the sports field. I looked at the barrage of comments, still scrolling, and gradually started to piece things together. According to these comments, I was just a cannon fodder supporting character in a sweet note, and my online chat partner Willow was the female lead. Looking down at the love letter in my hand, I finally realized no wonder in recent days her responses had been slower and colder. It turned out that she had mistaken me for the male lead, Makoto, from the beginning. That's why she added me on WeChat and chatted with me, and gradually developed feelings during those good morning and good night exchanges. Now that she knew the truth, she was avoiding me. She saw me as the obstacle to her relationship with Makoto. I heard the sound of laughter and chatter nearby. I looked up and saw Willow walking towards me. Her light blue short-sleeved top outlined her graceful body, the hem falling naturally at her waist, perfectly covering the top edge of her stretchy shorts. As she walked, the hem of her shirt fluttered and her shorts appeared, intermittently tracing the outline of her firm Wellston and legs, making it hard to look away. She was too dazzling and was the object of many boys' affections. She shone brightly, and when she took a few steps, she looked up and saw me. Willow paused her steps, then she awkwardly shifted her gaze away and started talking to her best friend next to her. Seeing her reaction, I sighed. It seemed like those bullet comments were true. One comment said, "If I were the male supporting character, I'd definitely stay far away from the female lead and not make a fool of myself." Another one commented, "Yeah, the male and female leads are a perfect match, but the supporting character insists on butting in. Isn't that disgusting?" One more said, "The female lead doesn't even want to look at him." Willow didn't look at me. She was staring at her phone, seemingly replying to someone's message. A smile unconsciously appeared on her face. It must have been the male lead, Makoto, whom she just added as a friend. Just as she was about to walk past me, I reached out and stopped her in her surprised gaze. I smiled and asked Willow. The bullet comments started to roll in like crazy. They were all cursing me. I ignored them and kept my focus on Willow, continuing. "Is Anna your roommate? Do you know where she is right now?" Willow froze for a moment. She furrowed her brows and said, "What do you need her for?" I shook the flowers and love letter in my hand and replied, "I've got something to give her." Chapter. Willow didn't say anything, but her best friend, who was standing by and watching the drama, came over and said, "Anna, you're looking for her. She's at the tennis court next door." I replied, "Oh, okay, thanks." With that, I took the love letter and headed toward the tennis court. I could hear whispers behind me. Though they were supposed to be whispers, they weren't exactly quiet. I could hear them clearly. One person said he's crazy, he actually likes Anna. "Yeah, Anna is so eerie, how could anyone like her?" Another person added, "Anna is pretty though, even though she's a yandere, men care about looks. It's not surprising that someone likes her." Someone else said, "Hey Willow, why aren't you saying anything?" Another voice chimed in. "Willow, what are you doing? Aren't you going to eat?" I heard hurried footsteps behind me. Before long, someone stepped in front of me. I froze, asked classmate Willow, "Is there something else?" Willow frowned as she looked at me and then glanced at the love letter in my hand. She seemed to realize what she was doing and awkwardly ran a hand through her hair. She bit her lip and said, "It's nothing." I just suddenly remembered that Anna has a bit of a strange temper. You don't know her well, and if you go to find her now, she might get angry. How about I give this to her for you? The bullet comments began to heat up. One comment said, "What's going on? Is the male supporting character playing hard to get?" Another comment read, "Scared me." I thought the female lead really had feelings for this plain supporting character. Now it's clear she's just being kind. There was another comment. Honestly, the female lead is so fragile. She was so depressed last year, she almost gave up, and if it weren't for the male supporting character comforting her, tolerating her unconditionally, how could she have gotten better so quickly? If I were the female lead, I'd probably be moved by him. I got a bit lost in thought as I read the comments. They were referring to the volleyball match from last autumn, which was very important to Willow. But Willow messed up during the crucial round. That match was lost. Everyone tried to comfort her, but she could still feel the silent sigh from her teammates, filled with immense pain and guilt. She hid away by herself. At that time, I sent messages and gifts, but not only did she not appreciate it, she lashed out angrily and said many harsh words. I wasn't upset in the end. I just recorded a song for her deliberately off-key. Less than 5 minutes after I sent it, she replied angrily, "Stop singing. You're making me so disgusted," that my leftover food was about to come up. Her tone was complaining, but there was a hint of a smile. She couldn't hide that night. I stayed up chatting with her, and eventually I managed to help her feel better. A bullet comment said the male supporting character stole the male lead spotlight. Willow could never fall for him. She's always only liked the male lead. Another comment said exactly. She only added the male supporting character because she thought it was Makoto adding her, otherwise he would have never made it onto her list. That's probably true. I shook my head at Willow and said it's okay. I know Anna pretty well. Willow froze for a moment and asked how is that possible. I shrugged nonchalantly and said actually I've known her for 3 years, but we've only ever talked online. We've never met in person. Then I felt a bit embarrassed and added with graduation coming up, I thought I'd go meet her in person and confess, give myself a chance. A bullet comment said what's going on? Did the male supporting character also mistake the person? Perfect. Now the male supporting character will go after that sinister female antagonist and stop bothering the female lead. Another comment said, but the female lead's expression doesn't seem quite right. Willow stood in front of me, frowning, looking like she wanted to say something but couldn't, and it seemed a bit comical. I looked past her and saw Anna approaching, my face relaxing. I said, I see her now. Willow, we'll talk later. Willow blurted out, aren't you mistaken? I froze and asked, mistaken about what? Willow bit her lip and said, didn't you say you've never met her? How can you be so sure the person in front of you is Anna? I couldn't help but laugh. I said, if it's not her, could it be you? Willow immediately denied it. Without thinking, she shook her head and said it's not me. I looked at her steadily for a while. Willow barely dared to meet my eyes. I nodded and said, so Willow, you don't need to worry about it. With that, I quickly walked around her and ran toward the crowd leaving the tennis court. Willow instinctively raised her hand but stopped herself. Chapter 3 Anna was tall and striking. Standing out in the crowd, she walked at the back, her long hair casually tied behind her. The hair on her forehead was wet, and she casually swept it behind her ear, revealing her delicate and beautiful face. However, her expression was cold with a don't come near me vibe. Apart from tennis practice, no one was willing to walk with her. I skillfully maneuvered through the crowd, heading against the flow and stopped right in front of Anna. At first, she didn't notice me and almost bumped into me. When she finally saw my face, she froze for a moment and asked what's up. I handed her the love letter and flowers and said I need to talk to you. I'm confessing my feelings. Anna looked at the crumpled envelope in her palm, then looked up at me. Actually, everything I told Willow was true. I really do know Anna quite well, or at least that's how I see it. I have a habit of being overly emotional and love providing emotional value to others. Simply put, I want to give every sad girl in this world a home. So I don't just have Willow as an online chat partner. Willow responds the most and asks for the most emotional support. She will pour out her frustrations when she sat and cling to me for chats before bed. In sharp contrast, there's Anna. She's so aloof I could send her 10 messages and she wouldn't reply to a single one. But I don't mind because I really like her looks. When her gaze met mine, I wasn't nervous. I said, let me introduce myself. I'm George from the statistics department next door. Anna, it's okay if you don't accept my confession, but how about we get to know each other offline first? Anna didn't pay much attention to me and just walked off with her tennis racket. I didn't mind happily heading to the cafeteria for a meal. On the way, my phone beeped a few times. It was a message from my game friend. Badass Makoto, he wrote George a few days ago. You said you were seeing a therapist and the doctor suggested you get a girlfriend. How's that going? Any progress? I thought for a moment and replied I already had someone in mind, but now I've decided to go for someone else. What about you? Didn't you add your goddess on WeChat? How's that going? Badass. Makoto replied with some frustration, it's been okay. After adding her, I don't really feel like talking anymore. Talking to you about games is more fun. Just then I saw the barrage of bullet comments starting to scroll rapidly. It seemed like something had triggered them. One comment said, "Can anyone explain why the male supporting character is also friends with the male lead?" Another one said, "Male lead, what are you doing? The female lead is still waiting for you to reply to her. Why are you chatting with the supporting character?" The next comment replied, "Male supporting character. Look behind you, that dark Yater, a girl, is following you. How can you even speak to her?" Another comment replied, "This is getting messy. Let's wait for the drama to unfold." While I responded to Badass Makoto's message, I kept an eye on the barrage. It seemed like these comments weren't entirely useless. After all, it turns out Badass Makoto was the male lead Makoto and Anna was following me. I suddenly turned around and Anna froze when she realized I had spotted her. She wasn't embarrassed at all. She walked over with a cold face, snorted, and brushed past me. Her mental fortitude was extraordinary, definitely not something an ordinary person could match. I clicked my tongue in amazement, but didn't mind turning around to head into the cafeteria. Today was a bit tiring after washing up in the dorm. I felt sleepy right away. I said goodnight to each of my online partners, and when I opened the chat with Willow, I paused. Oh, she doesn't need a reply. I was about to close the app when I noticed that typing indicator blinking on the chat window. I waited for a while, but nothing happened. I was exhausted, so I turned off my phone and went to sleep. Chapter 4, when it comes to finding a girlfriend, I'm serious about it. The next day, I was excited to go find Anna right after class. Unfortunately, I arrived too early and the tennis court was still empty. After wandering around for a while, I came back just as an argument broke out. "Coach." When I came in, the ball machine was already broken, and it looks like someone intentionally broke it. The coach asked who was the last one to leave last night. The person replied it was Anna. She came back to the tennis court after dinner and didn't leave until closing time. The coach asked, "Did you check the security cameras?" She responded, "The cameras are broken. They haven't been fixed in a few days." As they were arguing, Anna walked over. Everyone froze and looked at her. The coach furrowed his brows and with an unpleasant tone asked Anna, "Did you break the ball machine?" Anna glanced at him and shook her head no. Her nonchalant attitude made the coach a little annoyed. He impatiently said, "Don't deny what you've done. It's not a big deal." The students whispered among themselves. "It's probably her who did it. She still won't admit it. Is she afraid of paying for it?" The barrage was also full of doubts about Anna. One comment said not being the protagonist for a reason. "This person has moral issues. Did you see the look in her eyes? She did something wrong and is still showing an attitude." Anna's face turned red with anger. Her gaze fell on someone in the crowd, and she coldly snorted before taking out her phone from her bag. She quickly pulled up a video and showed it to the coach. The video showed an empty tennis court with a girl in the corner clearly kicking the ball machine in frustration. The scene flashed by and then the camera flipped, revealing a close-up of a familiar face. The person said, "Oh, Anna, haven't you made it to the tennis court yet? When are you coming? I've been waiting here for ages." The familiar voice, the familiar face, everyone turned to look at me, who was standing at the back watching the scene. Even with my thick skin, I couldn't handle their stares. I awkwardly smiled and said, "It's nothing, I just filmed it casually." But thankfully, this video cleared Anna's name. The coach walked over and asked this student, "Did you see who destroyed the public property?" I pointed at someone in the crowd and said it's her. It wasn't until Anna showed me the video that I remembered the situation, and I confidently pointed at the girl and said, "It's definitely her." The girl exploded, denying it frantically. "It wasn't me." I smiled and said, "Don't lie, I heard you. You kicked the machine and cursed, saying why did they pick Anna to go to the Beijing competition? You also said something about the coach having ulterior motives." The coach's expression darkened as he turned to glare at her, gritting his teeth and saying, "What did you say?" I didn't say anything. Oh, I pretended to take out my phone and said I didn't just record one video. Let me look for it. The girl panicked, and with everyone's gaze on her, she turned and ran away. Her reaction was an admission of guilt. The coach was very frustrated. He shook his head and said, "Everyone disperse. Let's get back to training." I said, "Coach." I smiled and approached him. "Did you forget something?" The coach frowned. What I pointed at Anna, who was silently organizing her racket, and said, "You still haven't apologized to Anna. You just said she was the one who broke it in front of everyone. Don't you think you should apologize now? Not far away, Anna's movements paused. She looked up at me. I was getting sprayed with the coach's words. He angrily shouted, "Who's this little brat? Get lost, don't interrupt our training." The coach was furious and added, "Anyone not involved, get out." He then stormed off. I shrugged and silently wiped my face. Anna almost imperceptibly curved her lips into a smile. I caught it. I asked, "Are you laughing at me?" Anna returned to her usual cold demeanor and said, "No, I changed the subject, suit yourself. But since I helped you today, it's only fair that you treat me to something, right?" Anna glanced at me and nodded. Okay, a bullet comment said, "Wait a second, why do I feel like their storyline is so sweet? This is weird. What's with the eye contact? Something's off. Let's watch and see." The next comment read, "I haven't even seen the male and female leads me yet, and you two are already going on a date." Chapter 5, sitting in a cafe off campus, I handed Anna her coffee and she pressed her lips together saying thank you. Her expression was cold. I figured it out. She was probably just born this way with very little expression on her face. I asked, "Do you play tennis every day?" She replied, "No." I raised an eyebrow and said, "Well, when are you going next? I'll come watch." I asked, "Where do you usually have classes?" "We might not be that far apart," I asked. "You don't seem to get along with your classmates. Do they get jealous because you're good-looking and good at tennis?" I asked, "Why aren't you talking?" I asked, "By the way, do you remember my name?" She replied, "George, do you always talk this much?" I fell silent and took a sip of my coffee. Anna turned her head to look out the window, her expression cold and distant. She looked like a mannequin. I was really curious about her, had a lot of questions, and she didn't completely ignore me. I asked 5 or 6 questions, and she'd probably answer 1. It was something at least. Just as I was getting into the conversation, I suddenly glanced outside the window and paused mid-sentence. Just across from the cafe was our school's west gate, where an ambulance was parked and a group of people was frantically carrying someone over. The person they were carrying was someone I knew very well. Willow, when I got back to school, I didn't need to ask around to know what had happened. Willow, for some reason, had been especially irritable these past couple of days. Today, during a game, she collided with a libero. In the heat of the moment, the two started arguing and Willow was pushed into the nearby steps, breaking her leg. Breaking her leg was one thing. The key was that they were supposed to represent our school in a volleyball competition next week in a nearby city. Now, with Willow injured, she couldn't go. A classmate of Willow's said she's been having some bad luck lately. Another replied it's her own fault. Mistakes like that happen all the time. She had to argue and fight with someone. Another student said she must be feeling pretty bad now. We are classmates. Should we send her a message to comfort her? One girl said we don't need to, she said. She told me before that she has an online boyfriend. Someone who knows how to comfort and talk to her, who provides full emotional support. We don't need to get involved. Another girl agreed. True. After listening to them for a bit, I got up and left. Back in the dorm, I took a few minutes to clear my mind and then pulled out my phone. I opened the chat with Willow. The barrage immediately started to mock and ridicule. One comment said, "What's the male supporting character doing? Is he trying to entangle the female lead again?" Someone else said he's chasing after Anna while coming after Willow. This guy's disgusting. The next comment said, "Can the male supporting character just leave the female leads?" Injury is the perfect opportunity to improve the relationship between the leads. I frowned, so that's what was going on in that case. I naturally had to cooperate, so I went to Willow's profile, blocked, and deleted her. Chapter 6. Willow had been feeling very down lately. It seemed like the heavens were working against her. Everything was going wrong, especially since she ended up in the hospital yesterday. Looking at the cast on her leg, Willow took a few deep breaths to suppress her frustration. She aimlessly scrolled through her phone when suddenly she received a message from Makoto Badass. Makoto asked, "I heard you were in the hospital. What happened? Is it serious?" Thinking about how Makoto cared for her, Willow smiled, feeling a little better. She typed a reply, "I accidentally hurt my leg. I'll be staying in the hospital for a few days." Makoto indeed comforted her. Willow felt his kindness and found herself talking more. She wrote, "I was supposed to go to a competition next week. So pitiful. Why did this happen? I couldn't sleep last night. I didn't fall asleep until 5 a.m. and then I couldn't sleep anymore. It feels so unfair." She said a lot in bits and pieces. She had hoped that Makoto would chat with her to ease the frustration she was feeling, but she noticed his replies were getting slower and slower, and the content of his messages became more and more dismissive. Finally, their conversation ended with Makoto's message, Rest well, drink more hot water. Willow was even more upset now. She suddenly felt like Makoto wasn't as good as she had imagined out of nowhere. She thought of George. If it were him, they would have probably had a great conversation. George was always like that. He knew exactly how to cheer her up, but he also knew when to give her space when chatting with him. She didn't have to worry about anything, and she always had fun, although she had added him by mistake at first, thinking he was someone else. Willow now thought she didn't regret it that much, sitting on her hospital bed. Willow's thoughts were racing. Maybe it was because the elderly lady in the next bed kept talking in her sleep, but Willow was feeling restless and eager to talk to someone. Without thinking much, she clicked on her chat with George. She hesitantly typed, "Are you there?" The next second, a prominent red dot appeared with the notification. George the Invincible has turned on friend verification. You're not his friend yet. Willow suddenly clenched her phone tightly. Chapter 7. I nearly laughed out loud when I saw the post Makoto just shared. Badass Makoto replied, "A man's path to strength begins with breaking free from the illusion of female charm." Noticing I liked his post, he came over to chat with me. He wrote, "I've finally shaken off the goddess's spell." He then started talking about his situation with Willow, clearly still in disbelief. He said she's been treating me like an emotional trash can, always complaining, wallowing in self-doppy, full of negativity. Why should I keep putting up with that? I teased him a little, and Makoto seemed to cheer up a bit. Then he suddenly asked, "I've been wondering, you're George from the statistics department, right?" I was shocked what you figured it out. Makoto laughed. "Your username is pretty obvious, true enough, only someone like Willow could mistake me for someone else." Makoto then asked, "I heard you've been getting close to Anna lately." I openly admitted, "Yeah, I'm pursuing her lately. I've been going to find Anna. Sometimes I'd bring her milk tea, other times I'd take photos of her. I didn't try to hide it, and many people noticed." Makoto hesitated for a moment, then tactfully suggested maybe you should consider someone else. I was taken aback why Makoto hesitated even more. After a few seconds of silence, he sent me a message. "I've heard rumors, and I'm just telling you what I've heard. Anna isn't mentally stable. Do you remember the misandrist and Antiochus slogans that appeared around campus the past couple of years? Our school had found several of these extreme slogans from last year to this year, but no one knew who put them up. They were always posted in places with poor camera coverage, and the content was highly disturbing. Things like fetal parasitism, abortion of male babies, tricking boyfriends into getting vasectomy is extermination of males, and other extreme statements that made anyone who saw them shudder. The most outrageous thing was that she didn't even spare male animals. She had tortured a few male cats on campus. I replied, "I know about that, but what does this have to do with Anna?" Makoto responded, "My junior saw her kill a cat in the garden when she was walking back from the library." I stared at the message, shocked. I couldn't imagine Anna being the kind of person. It didn't seem like her. I asked, "Are you sure it was her?" Makoto replied, "There's no concrete evidence. That night it was already dark, and my junior's roommate only saw Anna standing in front of the dead cat. She didn't see her actually do it, but she's still a prime suspect. You'd better not get too close to her. Makoto was just trying to warn me, and I didn't argue with him. I casually responded and then exited the chat. Just then, I glanced at the barrage scrolling across the screen and froze. One comment said, although Anna is a yandere, she's not an extreme fighter. I remember this storyline. Who was that woman? I kind of forget another person, said Maria. Was it Maria Liu or Maria Lee? The next comment agreed, yeah, that's right on the surface. She's a model student, but deep down, she's extremely twisted. I couldn't contain my excitement. After washing up, I lay in bed, carefully recalling the information I had gathered from the barrage. It seemed like this barrage was actually useful, and the information they provided was already very specific. The truth would soon come to light. I was overthinking, and I started feeling restless. I casually searched for Anna's name on the school forum, and the posts that popped up made my heart skip a beat. There were posts from boys who were attracted to her looks, trying to gather information about her. The posts quickly got replies. One person replied, "Dude, you really don't want to get involved with her. She's the one who put up all those extreme slogans around the school, and you still dare to go after her? Not afraid of spending the rest of your life with your lower half untouched?" He replied, "Hasn't someone like her been expelled yet?" The reply came no proof, but everyone knows it was her. There were countless similar posts. My frown deepened and I started to feel suffocated. I abruptly closed my phone, but Anna's face flashed in my mind. Suddenly I thought I understood why she seemed southwest. Out of place, why her expression was always so cold, because she had received so much malice. Originally, I was pursuing Anna just for her looks, because my condition requires it, but now I felt a bit of sympathy for her. Maybe if I could find the real culprit, Anna wouldn't be misunderstood by so many people anymore. Chapter 8, I started paying attention to the girl from the School of Life Sciences, Maria, the one who had been mentioned. After some investigation, I narrowed it down to one person, a second-year student from the School of Life Sciences, Maria Lee. She was slightly chubby with a round face and sharp chin, always wearing thin film glasses, looking very ordinary. She was a top student with excellent grades, had no hobbies, and spent most of her time in the library. She was the kind of student the teachers loved, the type who stayed out of trouble. I secretly observed Maria for a few days and followed her around. Her routine was too normal, too regular: classroom, cafeteria, library, dormitory, just 4 places in a straight line. But yesterday, when she passed by the flower bed outside the library, she suddenly stopped and looked inside, which seemed a little unusual. Today, I was planning to follow her again, but just as I was heading to the library, I was unexpectedly stopped by someone, Willow, who had just gotten out of the hospital and still had a cast on her leg. I quickly composed myself and asked what's up. Willow looked unhappy, her brow furrowed. She said, "Why are you always following that person?" I stared at her in shock. Willow pointed toward the library across from us and said, "My dorm is over there. I can see everything from my balcony." I raised an eyebrow. I was a bit confused by Willow's question and asked, "What's it to you?" Willow hesitated for a moment, her face growing even darker. I couldn't be bothered to argue with her and tried to walk past her toward the library, but she grabbed my sleeve. She looked at me and said in a dissatisfied tone, "George, did you delete me as a friend?" I met her gaze and nodded yes. I feigned realization. "Oh, so you knew it was me." I continued, "But didn't you add the wrong person in the first place?" "We added each other because of a misunderstanding. Now we're removing each other. It's just putting things back in order." Willow furrowed her brows. "What do you mean by that?" I sighed and said, "Honestly, I added you by mistake too. I thought you were Anna. When I realized my mistake, I wanted to delete you, but you kept messaging me every day. I didn't want it to be awkward, so I kept you on my list. But Willow, you know what? Talking to you is actually kind of annoying." Willow's lips trembled with anger. The barrage started commenting. One comment read, "That's some brutal honesty." Another one said, "Does the male supporting character really have to be so harsh the female lead doesn't even like him?" Another comment read, "I actually think the male supporting character didn't do anything wrong. The female lead ignored him first, and if both parties made a mistake, deleting each other is the most decent way to handle it." Oh, after reading so many comments, it's rare to see one that makes sense. I felt a little moved. Willow was still tightly gripping my sleeve. I got impatient and roughly shook her off, but I forgot that Willow only had one working leg right now, and she was still using crutches. She lost her balance and nearly fell backward. I jumped in surprise. Just as I was about to grab her, I saw a hand reach out and steady her. It was Anna. Anna didn't act like she was doing something nice. She released Willow and turned to me, asking, "Got a minute?" I stared in surprise, then nodded. She said, "Want to grab a meal?" I immediately brightened and said, "Sure. Do you like spicy food or non-prostitute? I know a place that's really good." Willow stood by silently, feeling invisible. She felt even more embarrassed in front of Anna. She didn't say a word and just turned to leave. After walking a few steps, she stopped, turned back to look at Anna, and then at me with an unclear look on her face. She snorted and said, "Anna, so you like this kind of scumbag who plays multiple C, making up rumors and spreading slander?" Neither Anna nor I reacted. We just watched her. She must have realized she'd gone too far. Her face turned red as she hobbled away after Willow left. I finally realized they were roommates. If Willow had noticed me hanging around near the library these past few days, Anna must have noticed too. She probably didn't misunderstand anything, right? Just as I was about to find a way to explain myself, I heard Anna say, "Let's go. Let's grab a bite." Chapter 9. This small restaurant had only just opened recently. The taste and the decor were both pretty good, but the location was a bit out of the way, so there weren't many people. After eating and drinking to my fill, I leaned back in my chair and let out a deep sigh. Anna also put down her chopsticks. She looked at me and asked, "George, what do you think of Maria?" I was startled and immediately explained, "No way, absolutely not. I don't have any romantic interest in her." Anna blinked in surprise and couldn't help but laugh, said, "That's not what I meant," and said, "It doesn't matter what you meant. Let me explain first. After all, I'm still pursuing you." Anna looked away, her ears suddenly turning a little red. I blinked in surprise. Why is she blushing? I didn't say anything at all, maybe to ease the awkwardness. Anna changed the topic. She said about Maria, "You shouldn't get too close to her. She might not be completely normal." I whitened my eyes and blurted out, about her torturing cats. Anna furrowed her brows. "How do you know about that?" She met my gaze, fell silent for a moment, then said, "I've been investigating her for a while, and I finally confirmed it was her." Watching her expression, I hesitated before asking Anna, "Can you answer me one question?" She responded what I said. "Someone said they saw you doing something bad to a cat in the garden. What exactly happened?" Anna remained silent for quite a while, just as I began to question if I had been too forward. I heard her say that night I was coming back from off campus, and when I passed by the garden, I heard a cat's miserable cry. It was short and then it stopped. I even wondered if I had heard wrong. I followed the sound and found a little cow pattern. Hern kitten, only about 2 or 3 months old. She bit her lip and continued. I squatted down to try to save it, but then a girl showed up and screamed before running away. You know the rest of the story. I sighed and asked, "Didn't you try to explain?" She replied, "It's useless." Anna's voice was calm as she said, "Just like how they couldn't find evidence that I did it. I also have no proof that I didn't. In situations like this, most people end up believing the rumors as the truth." She paused before continuing. "What about you? How do you know it wasn't me? You even investigated Maria." I looked at her and said, "Because I believe you, you're not that kind of person. As for Maria, it's just a suspicion, a misunderstanding, an accidental mistake." I explained vaguely. Anna obviously wasn't easily fooled. She furrowed her brows and asked, "Why do you believe me?" I smiled and said, "Don't you know that I added you on WeChat?" Anna froze. I thought for a moment and said, "It was at the start of our freshman year. I saw you feeding cats under a tree, and that scene really touched me. I asked several people before I could get your contact details." "Anna, you're hard to add. I tried 5 or 6 times before finally getting onto your friend list, so of course I know it wasn't you." Anna stared at me, stunned, her cheeks turned red again. I suppressed my laughter, watching her with great interest. Looks like Anna is actually pretty innocent. Chapter 10. Maria hasn't been acting right these past few days. She has been coming out of the library later and later, and instead of going straight back to her dorm, she has been wandering around the campus while walking. She often seems to be paying attention to the location of the surveillance cameras, either intentionally or unintentionally. Anna told me that there was a tabby cat on campus that recently had a litter of kittens. Maria might be planning something. At 11 p.m. on Monday, Maria left the dorm. She followed a route she had tested countless times before, and when she passed by the library's flower bed, she used a cat teaser to effortlessly catch a small male kitten. She stuffed the kitten into her backpack, avoided the cameras, and made her way to a hidden, abandoned equipment room beside the sports field. Maria was a little excited. It had been over a month since she last allowed herself to relax. The school had been cracking down harder, so she had to be more cautious. Maria's hands trembled slightly as her fingertips gently brushed over the kitten's soft fur. She whispered, "Be good, don't be scared," she murmured quietly, but her lips twisted into a malicious grin. The kitten in her backpack let out a faint whimper, its paws helplessly scratching at the fabric, unable to escape. Maria's heartbeat quickened, and her breathing became shallow. Having grown to hate her parents for their favoritism towards boys, she relished the feeling of revenge. She said it'll stop hurting soon. She softly comforted the kitten, reaching into her pocket for a thin string, which she skillfully wrapped around her fingers, but just then, bang, the door to the equipment room was kicked open. Before Maria could react, a shadow rushed in and kicked her to the ground. She screamed in pain as the back of her head hit the ground hard, her vision going dark. Her backpack was torn open and the kitten was quickly snatched away. Maria struggled to lift her head and saw the person who had entered. I stared coldly at Maria, one hand firmly holding her down while the other pulled out my phone, its screen showing the recording interface. Anna stood beside me holding the kitten. Maria's face turned pale instantly. She bit her lip and stammered, "You two have been following me." Her voice trembled and then she screamed hysterically, "Let go of me. Help someone." In the next second, a slap rang out as Anna struck her across the face. Maria's scream stopped abruptly and blood rushed from her nose. Anna said, "Shut up." Her voice was icy. "Everything you've done, I'm going to make sure everyone knows who did it." Maria trembled all over and fear finally appeared in her eyes. She said, "No, you can't." Her voice shook. I had no intention of wasting more words with her. I dialed the school security office with one hand, Maria completely panicked, struggling to escape, but I held her down firmly. She screamed hysterically, "Anna, go to hell. You think this will clear your name? It's useless. People will still hate you. No one will like you." I tightened my grip and asked who said that. I said I like her just fine. Anna smirked and gently petted the kitten's head. The security guard hurried over. Soon students from the area gathered. Drawn by the commotion, before long Maria was surrounded inside the abandoned equipment room. They found many disturbing tools and bloodstains left by the kitten. Many people were outraged, some even stepping forward to strike her. The security guards initially tried to intervene, but there were too many people and they couldn't stop it. When Maria's counselor arrived, Maria was kneeling on the ground, begging for mercy. Fearing that the situation would escalate, the counselor hurriedly took her away, but the incident still spread like wildfire online. Someone had filmed the scene, and there was footage of the equipment room providing irrefutable evidence. Maria couldn't defend herself at all. The comments online were all over the place, myself getting dizzy from reading them. Many people were defending Anna, but there were still plenty of voices doubting her, accusing her of hating men. Anna didn't seem to care. She tilted her head and said, "I didn't do this to make everyone understand me." She pouted. "I just think those poor kittens are so pitiful." I said, "Stop talking." I said seriously, "If you keep being this cute, I might actually fall for you." Anna was drinking water when she heard me. She choked, her face turning completely red. She looked at me helplessly and asked George, "Are you always like this?" I asked, "Like what?" She said, "Flirting, talking nonsense." I replied seriously, "I only speak the truth, and it's not like I do this all the time. You're the only one I've ever said this to." Anna looked at me for a few seconds before shifting her gaze. I looked up at the sky. The atmosphere became awkward, yet there was a subtle tension above us. The bullet comments flashed. One comment said, "These two are so obvious they don't even know the difference between heaven and earth anymore. Just get together already. Watching the romance between the male and female leads next door is giving me heart problems. The male lead is fine, but the female lead, don't even get me started." The next comment replied, "Why not change the female lead? I think Anna would be great. Give it up. The female supporting character clearly isn't interested in the male lead. Didn't you see the way Anna looks at the male supporting character? She practically looks like she's drooling." I was taken aback and turned to look. Anna was staring at me with intense eyes. I awkwardly scratched my head and asked, "What are you looking at?" She blinked and said, "I'm just thinking." I asked curiously, "What are you thinking about?" She lightly tapped her cheek with her finger and said, "I was thinking about when you gave me a love letter and I just tossed it in the dorm room. I need to go find it." Chapter 11. Maria was formally reprimanded by the school and received a major demerit. Rumors from the School of Life Sciences said she was going to take a year off, but I didn't expect that even before she left, she would cause more trouble. She ran into me and Anna at the school gate while carrying her luggage. The bruise on her face from the slap she had received that night was still visible. She glanced at Anna, but her gaze quickly shifted to me with a gloomy expression. She looked at me and said, "That night, I thought your face looked familiar. Now I remember where I've seen you before. George, you've seen a psychologist, haven't you?" She pointed at me, her expression mocking as she said, "Smelly men? Disgusting. You're mentally ill yourself and you have the nerve to lecture me." It was just around dusk and the school gate was crowded with people. Many of them stopped to look over. Most of the gazes on me were scrutinizing, some even hostile. I rubbed my palms together, keeping a straight face, and said, "Say that again," but Maria didn't respond. Instead, she grabbed her luggage and got into a nearby taxi. However, her words still affected me. Someone said this guy has a mental illness. Can't tell at all. What kind of illness does he have? Others commented, "I don't know, but it's better to stay away from him." I snapped back to reality and felt Anna gently tap my arm. She asked, "Are you okay?" I shook my head and forced a smile. I said, "Anna," she said, "I have a mental illness. Aren't you afraid of me?" At this point, I was still in the mood to tease her. She smiled and said, "They say I hate men and want to have guys sterlings, but you still gave me a love letter." I clapped my hands and said, "Don't even mention it. We really are a match made in heaven." Although I said that, I still felt uncomfortable inside. After dinner, I made an excuse about being tired and went back to my dorm. I didn't even want to look at my phone at that moment. The school forum was probably filled with exaggerated rumors about what had happened earlier. At the school gate, I buried my head in my pillow, and before long I fell asleep. When I woke up, it was already dark. I hadn't expected to sleep for so long. I sat up, feeling a bit dazed. My roommates had returned by then. When they saw me, they laughed. "George, what have you been doing? Come down. We bought some watermelon." Another roommate said, "I sent you messages, but you didn't reply. Look, I brought you your favorite grilled chicken wings." Their attitude was warm, just like usual. I sighed in relief and got out of bed. Finally, I had the courage to open my phone and check the posts on the school forum. Sure enough, people were talking about what had happened at the school gate in the afternoon, but the comments were not what I had expected. One comment read, "Wang is such a great guy. Last semester I was failing my classes and almost fell into depression. He stayed with me every day, chatting and helping me through it at George the Invincible." Another one said, "I'm a senior during the most stressful time of my grad school preparations. Wang sent me goodnight voice messages for 2 whole months." Another comment read exactly, "Someone's calling George mentally ill. Do people seriously believe what Maria says?" Suddenly, familiar eads popped up in the comment section, each one belonging to a girl I had once comforted. Someone also commented, "Last month I was heartbroken after a breakup, and it was George who answered my phone call at 3 a.m. at George the Invincible. He's even patient with random underclassmen like me." Tears welled up in my eyes. It turned out that all those late night voice messages and comforting texts were well remembered by them. Suddenly, a message from Makoto popped up on my screen. "George, I've already cursed out that imbecile for you." Immediately, my phone was flooded with notifications. I shakily opened my social media and saw that Makoto had posted an update at George the Invincible. "This is my bro, I've got his back" screenshot. The screenshot was of our chat history over the past 3 years. The most recent comment was from Anna, "He's great." Those simple words brought a warmth to my heart. I froze for a moment while biting into a chicken wing, and one of my roommates asked, "Is it too spicy?" I didn't put much chili powder in it. Meanwhile, the bullet comments were flashing on the screen. One comment said, "He's basically every woman's best friend, and even the male side character is super popular." Another comment read, "Female lead, step aside. The male and female side characters are going to be together forever." Male lead, "Sorry, I used to badmouth you." The next comment replied, "His name is George." Reading these comments, my mood lifted considerably. Suddenly, my roommate remembered something and ran over to me. "Oh, I just saw Anna downstairs. Looks like she's waiting for someone. Could she be waiting for you?" I froze for a second, quickly pulling out my phone to check. Anna had called me several times. I ran to the balcony and looked down. Sure enough, she was still there. Her slender figure stood under the streetlight, the soft orange glow spilling over her hair and shoulders, almost like she was bathed in a gentle halo. I felt my heart race a little faster. Without a second thought, I turned and dashed downstairs. Chapter 12, Anna. As soon as I ran out of the dorm gate, I couldn't help but call out to her. Anna turned her head and smiled softly, her eyes curving. "Why are you running so fast?" I was panting, barely able to catch my breath. "I was in a hurry to see you." Anna paused for a moment, then took out a tissue to wipe the sweat from my forehead. She naturally withdrew her hand afterward. She tilted her head slightly and asked, "Do you want to walk with me?" I replied, "Sure." There were many people out for a stroll around campus that evening, but most of them were couples. In this atmosphere, walking with Anna felt a little ambiguous. She broke the silence, first speaking in a gentle tone. What exactly was going on with what Maria said? "George, I trust you, but I'm also worried about you. If you don't mind, can you tell me about it?" Her tone and expression told me she was sincere. I slowly exhaled, looking down at the ground as I walked. I said, "Actually, I did go see a psychologist, but it wasn't a mental illness, just some psychological issues." I stepped on my own shadow as I walked forward slowly. I sighed and said, "My parents have always had a bad relationship since I can remember." The house was filled with the sound of arguments. They always complained about each other, painting the other as the villain. Anna slowed her steps, walking quietly beside me. I continued. "I was really worried they would divorce, so I tried hard to please them." I forced a weak smile and said, "When they fought, I'd tell jokes. When my mom cried, I'd wipe her tears. And when my dad slammed the door and left, I'd chase after him." The street light stretched my shadow long. I stared at the blurred silhouette and went on. Later, I realized that if I acted happy enough, if I showed enough care, they would make up temporarily. Slowly, it became a habit. I smiled bitterly. The doctor said it was a people-pleasing personality. I chuckled. It's kind of funny, right? On the surface, I seem emotionally rich, but deep down, I'm constantly anxious. We reached the artificial lake on campus, and Anna stopped, turning to face me. "It's not funny," she said, her voice soft but serious. "You're really brave." The moonlight reflected on the surface of the lake, shimmering in her clear eyes. I had never seen her look so gentle. the doctor said. I scratched my head. He suggested I get a girlfriend and build a stable, intimate relationship, which might help with my condition. Anna's eyes lit up. She blinked and said, "So that's why you suddenly gave me the love letter." I answered honestly, "Not entirely." I said, "I do like you ever since I first saw you in freshman year. I've had a crush on you." She suddenly took a step closer, shortening the distance between us, so her voice dropped low as she asked, "What do you think of me?" I asked, "What do you mean?" She hesitated for a moment, then continued, "As your treatment subject, I couldn't help but laugh. Anna, are you offering yourself up in mem?" She nodded, her ears turning slightly red. "What do you think?" "Consider it." The willow branches by the lake gently swayed in the night breeze, making a soft rustling sound. I looked into her serious eyes, smiling and nodding. "No need to think about it. Don't you remember, I've always been pursuing you." I just couldn't tell her that the reason I hadn't chosen her first was because she seemed too distant at first, but I kept that to myself. Anna's eyes brightened, as if filled with starlight. I took her hand, our fingers interlocking, and said, "Clearly I'll treat you well." Feeling the warmth of her hand, I suddenly thought maybe the doctor was right. A sincere relationship could really heal a lot of pain. The bullet comments were flying across the screen above us. "They're holding hands, they're holding hands. I hereby declare this couple locked down." I swallowed the key. Who's the female lead? I don't know her, this is the real ship. I looked up at the lively comments and couldn't help but laugh. Anna looked up at the screen, confused, but didn't see anything. She asked what's going on. I smiled and squeezed her hand, replying nothing. "I just feel really lucky to have met you." Chapter 13. On graduation day, the sun was perfect. I wore my cap and gown, and with Makoto we took our first photo together after 3 years of knowing each other in front of the teaching building. He leaned in and said, "George," he said, "I've blocked Willow." "Why?" I asked, shocked. "Aren't you?" He replied, "I just don't think we're a good match. She's really dramatic and talking to her is exhausting." Makoto grimaced, "Plus I'm heading to Beijing and Willow wants to stay local. Our views are completely different. There's no way I'd stay here for a woman. I need to focus on my career, Beijing." I realized something and asked, "Wait, does that mean?" He nodded and pulled out his phone, showing me his offer letter. I got a position as an editor at a publishing house. I was genuinely happy for him. The bullet comments were floating above our heads. "Makoto is such a real man." The female lead is crying in the bathroom. Makoto suddenly remembered something and leaned in to ask, "By the way, have you heard about Maria?" I shook my head. He continued, "She's completely insane. She actually tried to harm a baby in the neighborhood. But the parents noticed in time and called the police, otherwise it could have been a disaster. Now she's been arrested, and she's probably going to be sentenced." I was both surprised and a little sad for her, but I didn't pity her. She had done too much wrong. It was only a matter of time before karma caught up with her. While I was talking with Makoto, a burst of laughter came from not far away. I turned to look and saw Anna surrounded by many classmates taking group photos. This was unimaginable just a few years ago. The Seoul Karel Yandere, who everyone used to avoid, was now the center of attention at the graduation ceremony. Someone said, "Anna, once you become a tennis star, we won't even have a chance to take photos with you." A younger student said, with a smile. Anna smiled and shook her head, saying, "No way." Her eyes swept over the crowd, and she found me instantly. When our gazes met, my heart skipped a beat. Makoto laughed and nudged me, "Go ahead." I walked over, and the crowd of students began cheering. I naturally draped my arm around Anna's shoulder and handed the camera to a nearby classmate, smiling. "Could you take a photo for us?" The student taking the photo instructed, "Get closer." Yeah, just like that. At that moment, Anna suddenly stood on her tiptoes and gently kissed my right cheek. The shutter clicked almost simultaneously, capturing the moment. The crowd erupted into cheers and applause. My face was burning, but I couldn't stop smiling. The bullet comments flooded the screen. "This is the perfect ending. The male side character has made his comeback." The next comment replied, "There's no such thing as a side character. George is the hero of his own life." I held Anna's hand as we walked out of the campus, surrounded by everyone's blessings. The sun shone on us, stretching our shadows long across the ground. Anna suddenly stopped and looked at me seriously. "Thank you for choosing me." I shook my head. "No, I should be the one thanking you. Thank you for showing me that true love is never earned through constant pleasing and submission. It's built on mutual effort, equality, and honesty."